and there are some exceptions to the requirement to measure the subsidiary's net asset at fair value when accounting for business combination. The asset and liability falling within the scope of following standards should be valued according to those standards. First, IAS 12 income taxes, IAS 19 employee benefit, third IFRS 2 share-based payment, and fourth non-current asset held for sale and discontinued operations. Now, the next topic is goodwill. Goodwill should be recognized on business combination. This is calculated as a difference between the first aggregate of the fair value of consideration transfer and the non-controlling interest in the acquiree at the acquisition date, and secondly the fair value less the fair value of acquiree identifiable net assets and liability. The main important element of calculating the goodwill is purchase consideration. When calculating goodwill, purchase consideration transferred to acquire the control of the subsidiary must be measured at fair value. When determining the fair value of consideration transfer, remember that contingent consideration is included even if payment is not deemed probable. Its fair value will incorporate the probability of payment occurring. Means contingent consideration is included if payment is not probable, and it is included on the basis of probability. Second, the acquisition costs are excluded from the calculation of purchase consideration. Acquisition costs are excluded. These are the acquisition costs. Legal and professional fees are expensed to profit and loss as incurred. And secondly, debt or equity issue costs are accounted for in accordance with IFRS 9 financial instruments. Now, goodwill and the non-controlling interest. The calculation of goodwill will depend on the method chosen to value the non-controlling interest at the acquisition date. IFRS 3 provides a choice in valuing the non-controlling interest at acquisition date. Method 1, the proportionate share of net asset method. It is calculated as NCI percentage into fair value of net assets of the subsidiary at the acquisition date. Or the second method, the fair value method, fair value of a non-controlling interest at date of acquisition. This is usually given in the question. If non-controlling interest, or I can simply say NCI, is valued at acquisition as the proportionate share of acquisition net asset, then only acquirer's goodwill will be calculated. If NCI is valued at acquisition at fair value, then goodwill attributable to the both acquirer and NCI will be calculated. This is known as full goodwill method. The method used to measure the NCI should be decided on a transaction by transaction basis. This means that within the same group, NCI in subsidiaries may have been measured at fair value at acquisition, while the NCI in other subsidiary may have been measured at the acquisition using the proportionate basis. Now, the next topic is bargain purchase. If the share of net assets acquired exceeds the consideration transferred, then the gain on bargain purchase means negative goodwill arise on acquisition. Means the fair value of net assets acquired have a greater value than the consideration transfer. This is a negative goodwill. IFRS 3 says that the negative goodwill is rare and may suggest that errors were made when determining the fair value of the consideration transferred and the net assets acquired. The figure should be reviewed for accuracy. Secondly, if no errors have been made, negative goodwill is credited immediately to profit and loss. Now, measurement period. During the measurement period, IFRS 3 requires the acquirer in a business combination to retrospectively adjust the provisional amount recognized at the acquisition date to reflect the new information obtained about the facts and circumstances that existed at the acquisition date. This would result in goodwill arising on acquisition being recalculated. The measurement period ends no later than 12 months after the acquisition date. The next topic is impairment of goodwill. IAS 36 impairment of asset require that goodwill is tested for impairment annually. Goodwill does not generate independent cash flow. Therefore, it is tested for impairment as a part of cash generating unit. Now, what is a cash generating unit? A cash generating unit is the smallest identifiable group of assets that generate cash inflows that are largely independent of the cash inflows from the other asset or group of assets. For the exam purpose, we assume that a subsidiary is normally designated as a cash generating unit, entire subsidiary. Accounting for an impairment. An impairment loss is the amount by which the carrying amount of an asset or a cash generating unit exceeds its recoverable amount. Recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost to sale and value in use. It is a higher of fair value in use or fair value less cost to sale or value in use. Impairment losses on a subsidiary will first be allocated against the goodwill and then against the other assets on a pro rata basis. Accounting for impairment with a non-controlling interest. If non-controlling interest is measured using fair value method, goodwill calculated under the fair value method represents full goodwill. It therefore can be added together with the other net assets of the subsidiary and compared to the recoverable amount of the subsidiary net asset on a like-on-like basis. Any impairment of goodwill is allocated between the group and the non-controlling interest based upon their respective shareholding. Now, if non-controlling interest is measured using proportionate method, if non-controlling interest NCI is valued at acquisition its share of subsidiary net assets, then only goodwill attributable to the group is calculated. This means that non-controlling interest share of goodwill is not reflected in the group account. As such, any comparison between the carrying amount of subsidiary including goodwill and the recoverable amount of its asset will not be on like for like basis. In order to address this problem, goodwill must be grossed up to include the goodwill attributable to the non-controlling interest prior to conducting an impairment review. This grossed up goodwill is known as total notional goodwill. As only the parent share of goodwill is recognized in the group account, only the parent share of goodwill impairment loss should be recognized. Next topic is investors' perspective on measuring the non-controlling interest. The method used to measure the non-controlling interest or NCI at the acquisition will have an impact on the consolidated financial statement. Normally, the NCI figure will be higher if measured using fair value method rather than proportion of net asset method. This is because the goodwill and equity are increased by the goodwill attributable to the non-controlling interest. As a result, group may look more asset rich to potential investors. Using the fair value method will increase the goodwill on statement of financial position, and so the goodwill impairment charge to profit and loss will be greater. In the long term, this may lead to lower reported profits. This topic is exemption from consolidation. Valid consolidation exemptions. Intermediate parent companies. An intermediate parent entity is an entity which is a subsidiary, but it is also a subsidiary of another entity. For example, X has a subsidiary Y and Y has a subsidiary Z. Then Y is the intermediate parent. IFRS 10 permits a parent entity now to present group financial statement provided all of the following conditions apply. First, it is a wholly owned or partially owned subsidiary where the owners of the non-controlling interest do not object to the non-preparation. Secondly, its debt or equity instruments are not currently traded in domestic or foreign market. Third, it is not in the process of having any debt or equity instrument traded on a domestic or foreign market. Fourth, The ultimate parent produces a consolidated financial statement that comply with IFRS standards, which are available to the public. If this is the case, IAS 27 separate financial statement require that the following disclosures are made. First, the fact that consolidated financial statements have not been presented. Second, a list of significant investments like subsidiary, joint venture and associate, including the percentage of shareholding, principal place of business and country of incorporation. And third, the basis on which those investments listed above have been accounted for in its separate financial statement. And there is a thing, investment entities. An investment entity is defined by IFRS 10 as an entity that first obtain firms or investor and provide them with investment management services. Second, invest those funds to earn return from capital appreciation, investment income, or both. Third, measure the performance of investment on fair value basis. Investment entities do not constitute an investment over which they have control. Instead, investment is measured at fair value at each reporting date, with gains or loss reported in statement of profit and loss. Now, the invalid reasons for excluding a subsidiary. In addition to a valid reason for excluding a subsidiary from the consolidation, directors of the parent entity may seek to exclude a subsidiary from the group account for the several valid invalid reasons, including the first reason can be a long-term restriction on the ability to transfer the funds to the parent. This exclusion from the consolidation is not permitted, as it still may be possible to control the subsidiary in such circumstances. Means there is a long-term restriction on ability to transfer funds to the parent. The second invalid reason can be the subsidiary undertakes different activities and or operates in a different location, thus being distinctive from the other members of the group. This is not a valid reason for exclusion from the consolidation. Indeed, it could be argued that inclusion within the group account of such a subsidiary will enhance the relevance and reliability of information contained within the group. So the second is subsidiary undertakes different group activity or is at a distant location. The third, the subsidiary has made losses or has significant liabilities, which the director would prefer to exclude from the group account to improve the overall reported financial performance and position of the group. This could be motivated, for example, by determining the director's remuneration based upon the group financial performance. This is not a valid reason for exclusion from the consolidation. The third reason is subsidiary has made significant losses or have significant liabilities. Fourth, the director may seek to disguise the true ownership of subsidiary, perhaps to avoid disclosure of particular event or activities, or to avoid disclosure of ownership of asset. This could be motivated, for example, by seeking to avoid disclosure of potential conflict of interest which may be perceived adversely by the user of financial statement. So the fourth point is disguise the true ownership of subsidiary. And the last point is, which is the fifth, the director may seek to exclude subsidiary from the consolidation in order for the group to disguise its true size and extent. This could be motivated, for example, trying to avoid legal and regulatory compliance requirement applicable to the group or individual subsidiary. This is not a valid reason for exclusion from consolidation. Means disguising the true size and extent. The next topic is IFRS 11, joint arrangement. Joint arrangement are defined as the arrangement where two or more parties have joint control. This will only apply if the relevant activities require unanimous control of those who collectively control the arrangement. Joint arrangement may take form of the either joint operation, joint venture. The key distinction between the two forms is based upon the parties' right and obligation under the joint arrangement. So, what is joint operation? Joint operation are defined as joint arrangement whereby the parties that have joint control have right to the assets and obligation for liabilities. Normally, there will not be a separate entity established to conduct the joint operations. Now, the accounting treatment of joint operation. If the joint operation meets the definition of business, then the principles in the IFRS 3 business combination apply when an interest in a joint operation is acquired. Acquisition cost or expense to profit and loss as incurred. Secondly, the identifiable assets and liabilities of the joint operation are measured at fair value. The excess of the consideration transferred over the fair value of net assets acquired is recognized as goodwill. Reporting date. The individual financial statements of each joint operator will recognize individual financial statement of each joint operator will recognize its share of assets held jointly, its share of liabilities incurred jointly, its share of revenue from joint operation, its share of expenses from joint operation. Means assets, liabilities, income and expenses share will be recognized in individual financial statement. The joint operator share of income, expenses, assets and liabilities of the joint operation are included in the individual financial statement, so they will automatically flow through the consolidated financial statement. The next topic is joint venture. Joint venture are defined as a joint arrangement where parties have the joint control of the arrangement and have right to the net assets of the arrangement. Joint control of arrangement and have right to net assets of the arrangement. This will normally be established in the form of a separate entity to conduct the joint venture. In this, joint venture will obviously require unanimous consent of the parties involved, and neither party will have the direct right to the asset or direct obligation for the liabilities of joint venture. Instead, they will have interest in the net assets of an entity. Now, what is the accounting treatment? In the individual financial statement, an investment in joint venture can be accounted for at cost or in accordance with IFRS 9 financial instrument or by using equity method. In the consolidated financial statement, the interest in the joint venture entity will be accounted using equity method in accordance with the IAS 28 investment in associate and joint venture. The treatment of joint venture in the consolidated financial statement is therefore identical to the treatment of associate.